very beginning of Vayelech Moshe, the Sephora tells us that Moshe went out to talk to the Jewish people. His Earl is there. This was the last day of his life. And the word in the word Vayelech Moshe went. There was an implication the Sephora sees in this pasuk of Moshe being misorer. Moshe finding some internal sort of energy and focus that he used to prepare for this particular event and mission or endeavor that he was about to engage in, which was pretty much the last endeavor of his life. This was really the last thing he was going to do. He was passing away that day, and there was this Urus inspiration. There was some type of an emotional surge that he created for himself. When a person is misarer, the implication is that there's something that you focus in on. You sort of psych yourself up, so to speak, using sort of a secular vernacular. So, and he says, "Come over Vayelech Hishma Beis Levi, Vayelech V'Yavod." So why? He says, after he finished all the aspects of the bris that they just heard from Moshe Rabbeinu, Kisavo and Nitzavim, this idea of this covenant that they're entering into, what's going to happen if they do the mitzvos, Be'ez Hashem, all the good things that will happen to them if they follow the Torah mitzvos. What happens if they don't? It says, after all of that, if they went through that process, his Ar L'Nachem Es Yisrael Amisosei. He went out to be menachem, to comfort them on the fact that he was going to die, and he obviously realized this was not an event that they were looking for, anticipating. They didn't want this to happen. In order not to in any way diminish and allow any type of sadness to come in to the joy of the bris, which was this official covenant that they are now entered into with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is another aspect of why is there such simcha at that event. That's another issue, but just there was, and that was the source of simcha. He didn't want anything to diminish from that simcha. Okay, lahoros elayosim mekabel habris b'simcha. He wanted to make it clear how important it was that this be done with a sense of joy. Al derech yisbach Yisrael Yosef. Okay, and other references of simcha. It's just two quick points here that are, I think, so powerful, and certainly I think that should lead us not only during this time. This is the Shabbos of Shabbos Shuvah. This is the Shabbos, as the Bali Musa point out. This is every day of the week. These 7 days, we've already had Wednesday, we've already had Thursday, we now have Friday, but the Chazal say every day of the week that we have is an opportunity during between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, is an opportunity for all of those days throughout the year. So we're coming towards a Shabbos, and this is a Shabbos to think about if there was anything that might have gone wrong, anything which we might have not, focused in on throughout the other Shabbosos throughout the year, anything we might have been lax in. This is the Shabbos to Misarer, and to obviously try to do tshuva and rectify those wrongs, and to ultimately be mechaper. This is the Shabbos that sort of can atone for every Shabbos throughout the year, as every day of the week it represents that day throughout the year. So it's really an incredible thing. I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu, this is the last day of his life, and you think for a second, if you stop and reflect a little bit about who he was and what he stood for, the kind of person that he was, and the intimacy he had with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and this being the last day of his life, where he's he's leaving this world. He's saying goodbye to Klal Yisrael. He's about to meet his Creator in the purest form possible, with his guf separating from his neshama. I mean, of all people, you'd say he lived his life in the Torahs. He lived his life as one big Musa Seder. He was constantly in a state of spiritual connection, and the high state of sort of arousing his spiritual connection to be focused with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So his Orel is there. I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu has to stop and take a little Musa Seder and reflect on what is going on, to be sort of to psych himself up to do what he needs to do, and he needs to comfort the Jewish people, convince them not to be overly sad. I mean, you'd say this is. I'm not going to finish today. I'm meeting my Creator. So what is the Sephora saying? That there was his Orel that the Moshe Rabbeinu took a few minutes to psych himself up and to focus on the seriousness of the moment and the focusing on the mission and trying to really get himself really ready for put his game face on, so to speak. What is that about? And I think the answer, I think what the Sephora is saying to us over here, it's really such a profound concept, is that no matter how much a person is spiritually connected, no matter what stage of a person's life that a person is in their stage of life, there's always a need for, if you're coming from the routine, if you're coming from something which is going on a regular basis, and now you have a particular mission in front of you, no matter how critical or how important the overall state of mind is, and the drama that surrounds whatever you're involved in, but as you start anything, no matter what mitzvah you're doing, no matter what bracha you're making, no matter what it is that you're involved in, there is a need and an opportunity to maximize what you can do with that particular situation, to maximize the most you can get out of it. If you're not misarer, no matter how great a person is, there's something going to be lacking in terms of that purity of emotion, in terms of that sense of connection. Okay, you're going to do it, and you're going to do it nicely, but the need to sort of that hitting muchad mezuma, that stopping and reflecting, that kavanah necessary to make even a Moshe Rabbeinu in the last day of his life recognize, okay, what I'm about to comfort the Jewish people. I'm about to let them know, to try to not have them be sad at my demise today. I need them to be at the highest state of simcha, to appreciate this Allah, this bracha and Allah, this covenant they just entered into. I need that to sort of resonate in their hearts of simcha. So I need to be mis'arv for this task. I just can't do it, even though I'm naturally psyched up. I'm naturally pumped. That's who I am. I'm Moshe Rabbeinu, and pal dabra boy. But it's not enough. It's not enough. There is a need for a Jew. I think it's part of the sort of the human fabric. I think that's really what the Sephora is telling us. If a Moshe Rabbeinu needed to Vayelech Moshe, he needed to be Sor himself for this last mission. That means, I think that what the Sephora is saying is that there is nothing that we can sort of move in a sort of a straight line kind of approach to go through mitzvos. I think we have to always sort of take the opportunity to stop and to reflect and to think and to use whatever tools we can of inspiration, of focus. Certainly for davening, the Mishnah tells us that the great rabbis spent, what does it say? They spent an hour before davening, an hour after davening. What were they doing? I mean, so Torah says, because no matter how great you are, these were tanoim, but I'm davening for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I need to get myself in the right frame of mind. So we don't, we should have the time to take an hour. We don't have that time. But take a minute, take 5 minutes, learn a little Musar, focus in a little bit of what the opportunity is. The idea of sort of just going through life by rote, and not even a rote that's it's a bad rote. We're talking about a Moshe Rabbeinu's way of going through life. But there's going through life, and then there's the opportunity each and every time that I have a specific challenge in front of me to do a mitzvah, to do something important, to focus in on it, and to use that moment for inspiration, because obviously that's the nature of who we are. We cannot just sort of flatline life all the way through, and as good as we are and as sincere as we are, it's just not going to maximize the opportunity inherent in every single mitzvah. And we see that from this Vayelech Moshe, his Orel. He needed to inspire himself. And just the other point, which is obviously so critical, is the level of simcha. So, I mean, and if they're not so b'simcha, they're not so b'simcha, the fact that they're being sad about Moshe Rabbeinu, it's a mitzvah to mourn as well. But I guess there's a time and place for everything, and I guess Moshe Rabbeinu must have felt that now I need to do what I can to heighten that level of simcha, because when you're entering into that covenant and you're realizing and you're internalizing your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there needs to be simcha. That needs to be part and parcel of what it is, of how it is that you conduct yourself. And again, too much of this aspect of lacking the joy of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's a big challenge. But clearly, we see from here again that simcha needs to infuse everything that we do, and that has to be a part and parcel of our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If something is lacking b'simcha, as we learned in Kisavo, it could be a devastating result. If Klal Yisrael is sort of looking at this as a burden or just another responsibility as opposed to an opportunity. So certainly, if we can take these two things into Shabbos Shuvin and into Yom Kippur, and obviously beyond throughout the year, the idea of being Masarah, taking advantage and focusing in on a Yom Kippur. What does it represent? This incredible opportunity to do tshuva, to clean our slate, to be Masarah, to bring ourselves to a high level of emotion with that recognition, and of course to realize the incredible simcha inherent in that. Yom Kippur in a day is the happiest day of the year. My gosh, look at what we can do. We can clean our slate, and that's why it's Yom Kippurim. Okay, it's a day like Purim. It has that certain component of joy as well. Even though obviously it's a serious day, it really, we need to be infused with simcha at this day, every day, in the way we serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We can take these two ideas and internalize them properly. Bez Hashem will serve us well to having a good Geben Shor Gemar Chasima Tova.